Thanks for reparation. It's okay. She seems peaceful. My name is Erin Gilbert, Doctor of Particle Physics at... That stuff went everywhere, by the way, in every crack. Very hard to wash off.
Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Waters, and with me is...
My name is Matthew Veal, and I am a freelance video editor and a quality engineer at BAE Systems.
Yes, Matthew Veal, but I will just call him Matt for convenience sake. I'm Peter Waters. I don't know what the hell I am anymore. I was going to school for film studies, and now I am on track to becoming an English teacher for high school students. And in the meantime, me and my high school buddy Matt, we are both movie fans. We often find ourselves going to the movie theater, and so we thought it would be a fun idea to do a podcast, because everybody and their mother is in the podcast game, and so we thought it would be a smart idea as well.
Yes, it is. It's about time.
It's about time. Okay, so today's show we will be talking about a somewhat controversial film, Ghostbusters, not the Ghostbusters from 1984, which is a classic, but the Ghostbusters from this year of 2016, directed by Paul Feig of Bridesmaids, the Heat and Spy fame, and also a bunch of television. So, just to give some background on the film for you listeners who have been living under a rock and have no idea what Ghostbusters is. Ghostbusters was a movie released in 1984, and it pretty much changed the face of comedy. It sort of introduced the genre of the special effects-driven comedy. So you can thank Ghostbusters for that. Before then, movies like Caddyshack and things didn't really have a lot of sort of state-of-the-art special effects. And the movie was basically about a team of scientists battling the supernatural around New York City. And at the time, it was a huge gamble from Columbia Pictures because they were banking on this huge summer blockbuster movie with TV stars primarily, not movie stars. They were TV stars like Saturday Night Live's Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, and but despite all this, it became a huge hit. It was nominated for a couple Oscars, and it's just part of our cultural movie history that everyone should know, and most people do and love. All right. So it's kind of appropriate that with Paul Feig's reboot, he brings together a number of Saturday Night Live alumni, including Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, and Kate McKinnon. And Melissa McCarthy has hosted the show a bunch of times as well. And also, like Ivan Reitman, the director of 1984's Ghostbusters, Paul Feig, the director of 2016's Ghostbusters, has also sort of yet to prove himself in the realm of big-budget spectacle filmmaking. So this remake was sort of controversial based on those things, and also, of course, because there are now 4 women in the lead roles, so misogynists are coming out of the woodwork to basically lambast the film, saying it's ruining their childhoods because there is now a surplus of estrogen in the movie. When the trailer hit the web, there was a huge negative reaction on YouTube. There was, just for an example, normally movies of this type have a ridiculous amount of likes as opposed to dislikes. Usually the dislikes is just a tiny percent of the likes of any given movie. Ghostbusters had roughly 270,000 likes and 945,000 dislikes, which is pretty ridiculous. For comparison, the Adam Sandler film Pixels had 87,000 likes and 12,000 dislikes. So I don't know what you think about that, but I think that's some kind of tragedy. So I don't know about you, Matt, but I also hated the trailers, and I hated the trailers because I didn't want to be lumped in with the misogynists who, just derided the film only because there were women as Ghostbusters. I thought that was a great idea when I first heard it. Paul Feig has proved to me time and time again that he works well with women, with Bridesmaids, The Heat and Spy, as I previously mentioned. And the cast that he picked out are all hilarious ladies. So I was really rooting for this movie for a while. So, Matt, I'm going to throw it to you. What is your sort of relationship with the Ghostbusters franchise, and how do you think Paul Feig's movie stands up? Do you think the haters were right, and women can't be funny, and this movie ruins childhoods, or do you think it recaptures some of the magic of the original, or somewhere in between?
To be honest, Peter, I've only seen the first Ghostbusters movie, and that was when I was 10 years old. I remember really enjoying it, even though I was kind of terrified by the set design and the visual effects at the time.
You were terrified.
Oh, well, I was 10 years old, dude. Like, I was pretty scared. Like, especially with the Fridge from Hell sequence. That still gave me nightmares.
It did.
Oh, it was well done. Such a well done scene.
It was well.
But as for Paul Feig, I was really, really not a fan of his last film, Spy. As a lot of my readers know, I regarded it as the most overrated film of last year and one of the least funny Melissa McCarthy movies, even compared to Tammy.
No, Matt, I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you. You are so wrong on that, but continue.
Well, we don't agree on everything. So, and, like you, I was rooting for this movie because of the four. I was not really familiar with Kate McKinnon, but I was familiar with the other three, and they are all very funny people.
Yeah.
And I was rooting for a lot of more of a Ghostbusters reboot, per se, in a different gender. But the trailers were really, really terrible, and I agree with you there. And
I think that's sort of a universal thing right there.
I am not a misogynist at all, but I thought those trailers were really not funny, really terribly paced, and it just sold the movie as, oh, it's bad.
I think comes down to it was unfunny. Even if men were saying the same jokes, no one would have laughed.
Oh yeah, like if Seth Rogen released a trailer like this, I wouldn't have laughed.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the gender of the characters. It was really just a pure joke by joke failing level.
Oh yeah.
And for reference, Paul Feig's movies notoriously do have terrible trailers.
Oh yes,
well.
I agree.
And they have usually surprised people and how good they are based on their trailers.
I didn't see the full version of The Heat, but the parts I've seen are funny, and I do love Bridesmaids. The only one I was not a fan of was Spy, but he did a great job producing the Peanuts movie last year, which is very nostalgic in its own manner, and it touches all the important parts of that series together. So I gave this movie a really big chance, even though I went in with low expectations. And Peter, you're going to be surprised that I said this, but it didn't ruin my childhood, yet at the same time, it didn't wow me. I felt it was kind of bland.
That's a good quote to put on the poster. Didn't ruin my childhood, but it didn't wow me.
Yeah, it was bland at best. I thought most of the jokes fell flat, even though the cast all worked together really well and had a strong team dynamic. For the most part, the action scenes looked good, even though they're a bit generic. The visual effects had a few cool designs, but nothing compared to the 80s version.
Yeah.
And the comedy, I thought that was the weakest part of the movie. And there were a few times that I felt the script was all over the place. But for the most part, the film does have some really strong ideas and a really strong theme about dealing with your past. But do I recommend this movie to people? It all depends how you felt about the trailers. Like, if you are a misogynist waiting to hate on this movie, I would not recommend seeing it at all.
Yeah.
But if
this
you
is not a film for misogynists.
No, but if you are willing to have an open mind, like me and Peter here, it is a fun movie. It has problems, a good amount of them, very noticeable problems.
What were some of your problems with the film, just in general?
Well, in general, I thought the guy that played the villain was so boring, personally.
Right.
Neil Casey. I thought he reminded me of Finch from American Pie.
I don't remember that character.
Finch is the nerdy, quiet guy who
right
is
weird.
weird.
He sort of plays the generic guy who's bullied, and then
Yeah.
well, we'll talk about this more in spoilers, but yeah.
And there is a particular part where I felt a lot of stuff was edited out that shouldn't have been, which we will talk about more in the spoiler case.
Right.
But for the most part, the humor was really, really bad, except for Chris Hemsworth, who stole the movie for me.
He stole it.
Oh, there are scenes with any scene with him was delightful to watch.
He stole your heart, basically.
Oh yeah, like, he's pounding right now thinking of him.
He is a beefcake.
He's Thor.
He's Thor.
Anyway, the humor wasn't that great, and I just felt it was lumped together with real no purpose. The conflict was solved in 5 minutes. Everything was solved in 5 minutes. And even though I liked Kate McKinnon's performance a lot, I wondered half the time, what was she even doing on screen? Like, it was just
what do you mean?
Like, she's supposed to play the weirdo, I understand that, but she was a little too much at times.
She was too weird for...
Even too weird to be a weirdo. That was the way I viewed it.
Too weird to be a weirdo.
I know. It's weird to say, but I thought it was too over the top and too unnecessary at times.
All right.
Let's hear your thoughts, Peter, because this is the first we've heard your thoughts on this.
Okay. My thoughts on the film. I went into this movie thinking it would be terrible on a level comparable to, like, Attack of the Clones or something like that.
Oh, don't get me started on that one.
I thought it was going to be just awful. The trailers were not funny whatsoever. And it was just hugely disappointing because I was really anticipating this a lot. I like Paul Feig's other movies, even Spy, which you do not like, but I love that movie. And I like all these SNL people. Kate McKinnon's probably the best part of SNL right now. So I was really looking forward to this movie and what they would bring. And then the trailers just completely deflated everything. But I don't know if this is crazy or not, but I actually really like this movie.
Okay, that's not crazy at all.
It's usually the trailers are much better than the film in most big budget Hollywood movie cases, but I think Sony should fire whoever is responsible for the ad campaign, because the movie, I don't think it, in a way it does kind of represent the movie well, but it's just the way it was paced was just not conducive to making audiences laugh. And I'll get into spoilers, maybe, some of these things. But there is one scene in which the camera, say, pans over across a series of mannequin heads wearing wigs, and then at the end is Kate McKinnon making a goofy face and wearing a wig.
Yeah,
and
I remember that scene.
It's just played for this really stupid laugh, like, we're supposed to laugh just because she's making a silly face and she's in a wig. And it's just falls so flat. I've seen the trailer in a number of different theaters with full audiences. No one ever laughs at it. I've never heard even children laugh at it. But in the actual film, the tone of that scene is completely different. It shows it in the exact same way, but it's the reveal is amping you up for a scare. So her goofy face isn't just playing over goofy trailer music. It's, sort of a surprising moment where you're expecting a ghost. So it just the trailer was edited very poorly, and that's just one example of it, where they edited it not in context with the film. And I think once you see a lot of those moments in context, they worked a lot better for me anyway.
I do agree with you that the trailer was really edited poorly, and it did not sell the movie well at all. Like, the movie itself, I thought, was better than the trailer. I will agree with you there.
I don't think anyone could possibly argue that. I think it's one of the worst trailers to movie ratios ever.
Oh, agreed.
I thought the cast, I loved everyone in the cast. I really thought that they both did their own unique spin on the Ghostbusters thing, but also they all kind of channeled little idiosyncrasies and things that are little character things that are sort of loose reflections of the original Ghostbusters crew. Like, I thought Kristen Wiig did a really good job sort of channeling the cynical Peter Venkman character, which was the Bill Murray character from the original. She kind of starts out the movie not really believing in ghosts, and then she turns into a Ghostbuster and that sort of thing. And Kate McKinnon, she's just wacky and crazy, and I can understand how some people might think she goes over the top. But I saw it in an audience with a bunch of kids in it and things, and I don't know. I think it works on sort of this cartoon level for families to enjoy. She's just kind of a goofy personality. She's always making faces in the camera, and I can totally see how you would be turned off by her sort of constant mugging to the camera, but I kind of went in knowing that was her shtick anyway, so I thought that was good, and she has a good moment at the end that I will bring up as well.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, and I agree.
Yeah, and who else? Melissa McCarthy. I've always liked Melissa McCarthy and everything she's done, except for Tammy, and that I've seen at least. And I thought she did a good job as well. She kind of tones it down from her usual. Sometimes she'll sort of play that sort of goofball card and just have a lot of physical humor. And in this one, she kind of plays more of the Dan Aykroyd Brainiac character. And I thought that was a good fit. She kind of tones down her, more physical comedy things that she's been known for. And Leslie Jones, she was still played that sort of loud and annoying character that she, plays on SNL, but I thought she worked too. And she kind of toned it down a little bit as well. She wasn't just screaming the whole entire film. So I like the cast. They clearly had a lot of fun on set together. Their camaraderie is real. And I think that's sort of the heart of all of Ghostbuster movies, is that sort of camaraderie between the characters. And the fact that that worked for me made like 80% of the movie work for me, because I enjoyed spending time with these characters. And the original Ghostbusters movie, I don't care about the story at all. Like, I don't know why some people hold that movie sacred. I think it's just kind of a decent, comedy action story. But the reason why that movie still holds is because the characters, we care about the characters. And I think in this movie, this remake, even though it definitely has its faults, especially towards the end of the film, I thought the camaraderie was there, and I totally would want to see more movies from this crew. So, yes. Things I didn't like, though, the CGI effects were not that great throughout. A lot of them looked kind of like Disney's Haunted Mansion at times.
Oh, yes, it did.
Yeah.
And another movie, Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed.
Yeah, I can kind of forgive that because it's a comedy and not, it's not selling itself as this sort of, it's not like The Jungle Book or something where it's touting itself as the special effects masterpiece, but it did sort of cheapen the look, especially the final battle in New York, which is in all the trailers. It definitely looks fake and definitely has that sort of pixels fake look to it that, I don't know, it just kind of, when there's not as much jokes during those sequences and it focuses on the action, that's when I started to lose interest, because it strays away from what I like, which is what the characters. I thought, but that being said, I did think the look of it, the overall look, actually I did like, because it was very colorful, and I think annoying children will be distracted by it, and that would be good. And I also think it's a good thing for young child girls to see the film and have some kind of a role model, I guess, action hero role model.
I absolutely agree. And can I point out one more thing? I don't believe this is a spoiler, but no love interest. I feel any movie without that helps it.
So refreshing to not have some random dude. Although Kristen Wiig's character does sort of have the dreamy eyes for the Chris Hemsworth character.
But that is okay, though.
Yeah, there's never any sort of love story in the film, and it's really more about their sisterly bond between the four Ghostbusters.
Right.
And this is a trend that I really like, we saw this in Frozen as well, another movie that, there's no love interest, and that's a fairy tale film.
And last year's both our number one, Mad Max Fury Road, same thing.
Yeah, Mad Max and Furiosa didn't get together at the end. They just sort of silently nodded to each other.
Right.
And it's just refreshing. We don't have to see the same tired cliches over and over again. I, like you, didn't really care for the villain. I thought he was pretty terrible and boring. And he's strangely absent from all the marketing material. I guess the people selling the movie kind of knew that he was lame too. But overall, I enjoyed the film. It's way better than the trailer would suggest. I left satisfied. I just thought it was fun, light summer popcorn entertainment, and that's pretty much what I thought.
That's fair. I do agree that it is fun and it is very light, and just for a good rainy day, it'd be like that. But I felt it's bland at times, so I wouldn't give it the same satisfaction. But I did see this movie in 3D. I don't know if you did, Peter.
Oh, no, I saw it in 2D, which I am very anti-3D because I just have...
Oh.
I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that made me think, wow, the 3D, like, is so good that... I don't know. I
actually was just about to say, this is probably one of the best 3D experiences I've ever had. Like, they really immerse you in the scenes, and it looks really cool.
Better than Avatar?
Okay, not better than Avatar or The Jungle Book, but
what about
it's
Life
up there.
Life of Pi? What about that?
That was overrated 3D, and everybody knows it.
What about The Walk?
Okay, The Walk's up there, too.
Yeah.
But it's still very impressive 3D, and it looked really good.
Okay. Well, I still suggest don't see it in 3D, but...
Do whatever you want. But...
Do it. I think do whatever you want. I find with 3D movies, I end up forgetting it's even in 3D halfway through the movie, and I feel like, what's the point anymore if you forget that it's even in 3D?
Understood.
But anyway, those are our general thoughts. What would you give it out of 5 stars?
5, I would give it a 3 out of 5. I'll refer to it as, I'll give it 3 barfing ghosts out of 5.
3 barfing ghosts.
Yeah.
I would give it exactly the same thing, although I think I'm a little more positive on the film than you.
Yes,
I would also give it 3 out of 5 stars, which it's a strong 3 out of 5. It's not like 3 out of 5. It's like 3 out of 5.
Mine's a meh 3 out of 5. So
see, I have a slightly different meh inflection, which means I enjoyed it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Better than Spy, I will say that. Much better than that.
Okay, I think this is probably still. I think it's Paul Feig's worst film he's made so far, but I still think it's pretty good. I think his track record is as yet unsoiled. So I would love to see him back for a sequel, I think.
It's doing well money-wise as we speak, so
yeah.
I think you may get it.
Hopefully. So those are our general thoughts. Is it time for spoilers, Matt? Would you say it's time for spoilers?
Yes, let's do the spoiler show.
It's a Cadillac!
Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, did you want to?
Sorry, I'll let you.
Next time. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just start spoilers right now. Okay. So for our spoilers section, it's basically we are going to go through the entire film, start from beginning to end, and talk about the individual scenes and moments that happen, and give our take on everything that happened. I think first thing we should say, the movie does pretty much not exactly, but almost exactly copy the formula, I guess you could say, of the first Ghostbusters film.
Yes, it does.
At least the basic structure of it. And just like the original movie, it starts with a cold open of a ghost sort of haunting somewhere. In the first film, it was a library, and there was the librarian who was older, lady librarian who was scared by ghosts. And in this movie, it's a tour guide at sort of this haunted mansion place, the Aldrich Mansion, and the tour guide is played by the weird guy from The Office, the skinny guy from The Office, if you've seen that in the later seasons, Zach Woods. And he basically, the tour is basically this fake out thing for the guests. There's a fake jumping candlestick and that sort of thing. But little does he know, even though he has the fake jumping candlestick on this, tour throughout this mansion, is that the place is actually haunted by, the evil villain dude who left some sort of electrical device under a table, and now there is an actual ghost haunting the house. And then it starts raising heck, as ghosts are wont to do. Things start shaking, and then the doorknob heats up, and then the guy burns his hand like Joe Pesci from Home Alone. Mm-hmm. And then he tries to escape, throws a stool through the window, or tries to it stops in midair, and he tries to run into the basement, and then he is covered in green slime, and that's sort of our cold open. It's this, I think he was trying to go for legitimate scares in there.
And that scene, I do give that it worked there. Like, it wasn't made for humor at all. The tension and the pacing were all there for a legitimately creepy scene.
Yeah. How do you think this compares to the first film's cold open, do you think?
Oh, nothing touches that, my friend. That first scene in the original Ghostbusters is so iconic and so memorable that I don't even think even a remake could even attempt to touch it. This was a cool scene, though. Will I remember it 5 years down the line? Probably not. Ghostbusters opening, I recall very well.
Yeah. I thought it was all right, I thought the little details of, like, the floating stool and, I thought it was kind of creepy. It does kind of toe the line between, little kids might be a little bit freaked out by it, but, they're tough, so whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be mentally scarred by anything happening.
No, absolutely not.
No, you could take a family to this.
Yes, absolutely.
So I thought it was
the
all right.
80s version, on the other hand, I don't know.
Yeah. So it seems like we're both kind of approving of the opening scene. And then we're introduced to Dr. Erin Gilbert, which is Kristen Wiig's character. And she's approached by Ed Begley Jr., the actor, about a paranormal book she wrote. I should say that Dr. Erin Gilbert is at a college or something.
Columbia
College. And so she wants to get tenure, and she has this book that she wrote in her youth, or, when she was a younger student. And she wrote that with Abby Yates, who is the Melissa McCarthy character, and they wrote this sort of paranormal book, but she's beyond that. She has to solidify her reputation, and all this pseudoscience stuff of her past she doesn't want to have to deal with. But it comes back, you can't help it from coming back, just as she's trying to attain tenure. And so that's sort of our introduction to her. So she's sort of moving past the ghost things. But Matt, that ghosts are going to come back, and she's going to become a believer, and that's basically her arc, is learning how to not only believe in ghosts again, but to get back her friendship with Abby. And that's sort of the heart of the film, I think, between Erin and Abby.
That's where I disagree with you, actually, Peter.
Why do you disagree with me, Matt?
Well, even though the film tries to attempt that, I feel that conflict with Erin and Abby is resolved within 10 minutes, and really nothing else is brought up with that ex-friendship until maybe the very end of the movie. Like, it is resolved too quickly for me to say that was the heart of the film.
There's no way that you could have these ghosts in the film without it. At that point, if she didn't believe in the ghosts, it would make no sense. She has to believe. Once the first ghost comes out, you can't have that thread where she doesn't believe in the ghosts anymore, and
No,
she's crazy.
That I understand. That I completely understand. But here's the thing: Paul Feig introduces really good ideas, but either resolves too quickly or executes them not that great.
Well, what was the idea there that wasn't executed well?
The way that she was introduced to Abby's world and all that. I thought the first 20 minutes, other than that really cool sequence at the beginning, was dreadful to sit through.
Wait, what are you exactly referring to?
Let's see. Erin walks into Abby's office. Immediately, fat joke about Chinese food.
Wait, I don't think that was a fat joke. That was a joke on Chinese food. I think the joke you're referring to is that they order some Chinese food, and Melissa McCarthy's character
complains about it.
She gets some wonton soup, and there's just one wonton. And supposedly, with wontons, that I thought that was a hilarious joke that I don't think it was a fat joke at all. I think
Oh.
it was a joke on this common experience everyone has of, getting this, Chinese takeout and there's just one wonton in the soup. I thought that was a really fun, clever joke.
So did my family. For me, I understand your point of view there. I do see your point of view, but at the same time, Melissa McCarthy has been in too many movies where she presses the fat jokes that I just viewed it as that such.
Oh. Well,
And but that's not all I had an issue with. Not even 5 minutes after that, they're like, "Oh, come on, listen to this. We heard a ghost fart noise, and it was predictable too." And then not long after that, puking on Kristen Wiig.
I'm not sure what any of that has to do with like fat jokes, but
No. Just the first 20 minutes in general, I felt was very hard to sit through because there's not only that fat joke, but farting jokes and puking jokes throughout.
yeah, I guess.
And I thought that was unnecessary. And here's the thing, too. I should be the last person to say fart jokes are unnecessary because Swiss Army Man, which happens to be my favorite film of the year, uses fart jokes as a plot device.
Well, I think Ghostbusters and Swiss Army Man are two completely different
Oh,
movies.
absolutely.
That I don't know if the contexts for these things are the same, but yeah, I guess I can give you that some of the jokes are sort of aiming, somewhat low, like
And it's repetitive.
like the throwing up scene to set it up. Soon after, Erin and Abby. And we're also introduced to Holtzman during that scene, who's sort of her replacement for Erin once Erin goes off to do her own thing. Holtzman is the Kate McKinnon character, and she's sort of the kooky scientist who shows up. And those three sort of are called to the Aldrich Mansion, which we saw at the beginning of the film with the actual ghost. And that's sort of the first actual ghost encounter we see with the Ghostbusters to be. The three of them, at least. Leslie Jones isn't here yet. And basically the ghost comes out and they capture it on video. And then the ghost just pukes on Kristen Wiig's character. And then the scene just kind of ends.
Yes.
Which was kind of bizarre that they didn't have any sort of follow-up or reaction to her being slimed, kind of.
And not to mention those characters from the mansion, which I thought would be reoccurring characters, never seen again.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely one of the weak, or not even weak, it just wasn't even there. They just introduced this thread. But I think the point of the ghosts it was more just the fact you were supposed to see that electrical device releasing the ghost, and that's sort of the thing. But they make a big deal out of this story at the beginning of this woman. There's a giant painting of this evil-looking woman, and then we see this sort of woman who was killed, and we get this whole backstory that you think might be important to the story, and then it just ends up going nowhere. So there are little things like that that
happened throughout the movie.
Yeah,
And,
I didn't find that it really made a huge difference overall, though. Something like that,
It did for me. I noticed quite a few parts of that, and I don't know if you knew this, Peter, but the initial cut of this Ghostbusters film, according to Paul Feig, was 4 hours and 15 minutes long.
I don't exactly know how productions like this
Right.
work, but I think most movies have extremely long initial director's cuts, and then they whittle them down.
Right, but with this film in particular, I noticed quite a few times where there's a subplot that could have been explored, but they took it out entirely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if this particular ghost would have, in that 4-hour cut, would have had more of a backstory or not.
I don't think this one, but we'll talk about it later. There's a particular part I felt there was.
All right, so yeah, I liked their introduction overall, even though maybe some of the, like I said, the reason why I like this film isn't necessarily for the overarching story. The overarching story is weak. It's because of their little character interactions with each other that I liked. So during that scene, you look at it in its broad strokes, the team goes to this mansion and a ghost comes out and it throws up on Kristen Wiig. That, just describing it just sounds juvenile and stupid. But the individual character beats and things in between the scenes, like that they either were written or improvised, that is what I liked about the film. Like, just little details, like Holtzman is like chomping on Pringles while the ghost comes up, and
I will give you that was actually a pretty funny scene.
And I liked the little device they had. It's like the sort of updated PKE meter that Abby uses for the film. It kind of looks like one of those things, little neon light up things that kids have in parades, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep, I do.
Those like spinny things that...
Yeah, it looked cool.
Yeah, I liked the little details and things like that, but yeah, it doesn't... If you're looking for some sort of, like masterful yarn, you're not going to find it.
No, absolutely not.
But I wasn't looking for a masterful yarn, so I guess it didn't bother me that much. All right, so soon after this video goes online, Kristen Wiig's character is fired immediately because there's a viral video where she's screaming into a camera, "Ghosts are real, ghosts are real," which I thought was funny because of how insane she sounded. And basically, immediately, she decides to join Abby and Holtzman in their paranormal research. I guess you're right. They kind of do go into that very quickly.
And that's why I don't view it as the heart of the film, because they hated each other.
They wanted it to be the heart of the film.
But they took it all out as a result. I think...
Do you so you think that she should have been more trepidatious? But
yes, there should have been more of a conflict between the two. I think more arguments.
Yeah, because another thread throughout this whole film is that Abby just went ahead and published that ghost book on Amazon and places without Erin knowing. So
right.
She sort of went behind her back and like took charge. Yeah, they should have built up this conflict more, and then at the end, when eventually they are best friends, besties, that would have had more impact, definitely.
Right, which is why that last scene, the whole, all that, it should have worked better if there was more conflict and more argument with one another.
Yeah, I won't agree with that. I mean, I won't disagree with that. I apologize.
No worries.
All right. So, she's fired, and she joins them, and then they open up their own facility. Oh, and also, Abby and Holtzman are fired from their college place where they were doing things. And one of the best scenes in the movie is when they are fired by their sort of, I think, public college. And Steve Higgins...
Are you talking about the bird scene?
Yeah, the bird scene.
That was the best scene in the movie, in my opinion.
Steve Higgins from Jimmy Fallon. He's Jimmy Fallon's sidekick on The Tonight Show. He plays the dean that fires them, and he basically gives them the finger and in an extended sequence that is funny, to me anyway.
I thought that was very funny.
Yeah. Kind of reminded me of Bruce Almighty, the finger scene in that.
Yes, it did.
So, after that funny interlude, we're then introduced, finally, to the fourth Ghostbuster, Patty Tolan, who's an MTA worker, and that's played by Leslie Jones. And so she is not a scientist, which got a lot of press because she is the one black Ghostbuster, one black member of the team, and she is not a scientist, and she works the sort of public service job. And a lot of people were decrying the film, saying, why couldn't she have also been a scientist? And it seems like she's playing the sort of same exact role that Ernie Hudson was playing in the original film, the sort of, extra black person who wanders into the scientist's game. So, but I don't know. I
thought it was... That's one of my bigger problems with the movie, to be honest. I don't care what her job is, but I thought Leslie Jones's character was written very stereotypically a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, she has some... It's cool that she has street smarts, and the reason that she eventually joins the team is because she knows the city very well. But I thought a few other parts, like, it was a little over the top, and... especially the metal concert scene where
Yeah.
which is shown in
Well,
the trailer.
we'll
is that
get
a race thing or a lady thing?
Yeah, we'll get to that scene soon. Yeah. I don't know. It didn't really bother me that much in the film, during the actual movie, but looking back, it definitely seems like, I don't know,
A little racist.
a little racist. I mean, I don't think she would agree to it if it was racist.
Oh,
I mean, it's not
no.
like, I don't think it's racist. It's not racist. It's just
It's
kind
not
of
racist.
it's just kind of disappointing that she couldn't have also been a scientist or something like that. It's
Yes.
just, why couldn't one of the other white characters have been the MTA worker? It just seems too convenient that it was the one black character that was the MTA worker.
Honestly, I think Melissa McCarthy would have been a better MTA worker character
Yeah.
than Leslie Jones.
Yeah, who knows? But anyway, that's more of just something that didn't happen versus what's actually there. And I don't take that much offense to it, I mean, what am I to say? I'm not a black woman, so, but, I didn't...
You don't need no man.
I guess not. All right, so, anyway, she's approached, while she's working, she is, Patty Tolan, Leslie Jones, is approached by the villain of the movie, Rowan North, who, as you mentioned, is Neil Casey, who I never recognized before ever. He's apparently a writer for SNL and Amy Schumer and a bunch of comedy things, and he basically plays this disgruntled nerd who just wants to kill people for no reason. And he's talking about, he basically just wants to unleash a bunch of ghosts on the city and kill everybody. That's all he wants. And so eventually Patty goes to investigate what he's up to. He walks down an actual subway tunnel, and he unleashes a sort of prisoner-looking ghost, which I thought was also kind of creepy. So I thought
That was a really cool design, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the few really cool-looking special effects in the film, is the prison ghost that he unleashes. But again, we don't know anything about this prison ghost. It's just kind of a cool-looking, surface-level ghost thing that really has no bearing on the plot. It's just random ghost number 2 that we see. So then after that, without any place to go, Erin, Abby, and Holtzman relocate to a new location. They don't have their colleges anymore, and there's a funny moment where they stop by a firehouse, which is modeled exactly after the Ghostbusters headquarters from the first film, and basically Kristen Wiig takes one look at the price of the rent, and she tells the realtor very quickly, "Burn in hell." So I thought that was kind of a funny little joke, like, no one can afford, a big firehouse in New York City. And so they end up eventually on the second floor of a Chinese takeout place, which I thought was a fun little, it references sort of how, places are expensive to rent in New York City. And it also is sort of this reflection of the first film, so it kind of digs at the first film at the same time as being this funny little joke. I liked that as well. And then we meet Kevin, Chris Hemsworth's character, who's really dumb, and they hire him anyway because he is hot. And I don't know, what did you think of Hemsworth?
As I said in the non-spoiler section, Hemsworth steals the movie for me. That's the interview scene was hysterical.
Yeah.
Like that little thing about his dog and his mom was really, really, really funny.
Yeah.
It was a riot.
It was a riot.
Yeah, he basically, even though his character particularly doesn't do that much, he just brings comic gold and has charisma, and it's just so fun to watch, and he has a great time with the cast, you can tell. So I just feel that last year's Vacation didn't utilize him that well. That he is well used here, and just like Jason Statham in last year's Spy, one of the better parts of that film, in my opinion, Paul Feig knows how to pick really funny male characters who steal movies from people.
Yeah. I thought he was funny as well. I mean, he basically is sort of the male version of the dumb blonde character in a lot of movies. But I thought he held his own. There were a bunch of in the interview scene. You could definitely tell that they were improvising a lot of their lines.
They did. The glassless scene.
Yeah.
Is because the camera guy had issues with shooting actual glasses.
Yeah. There's a scene in which he's the Chris Hemsworth character, Kevin, is wearing glasses, and during the middle of the interview, he just goes in and reaches his finger through the lens and scratches his eye, which shows that there's no actual glass in the glasses. And so it's just little details like that he added that were just funny. And he starts his sort of main shtick is that he never answers the phone, even though he's the receptionist. I don't know why you wouldn't just fire him immediately. They're really kind of irresponsible, hiring in the workplace.
Oh yeah.
But it just proves that the hotter you are, the easier your life is.
Yes.
So there you go. I thought he did a decent job. And then after they meet Kevin, then they meet Patty, the Leslie Jones character, and then they're off to investigate the subway, and the whole Ghostbusters crew, all 4 of them finally. And this is where we see, I don't know how you're going to think about this, but the graffiti scene, where this is where we figure out, because everybody apparently wanted to know this, the origin of the Ghostbusters logo. It wasn't just a logo that somebody came up with. It was made by some random graffiti artist in the subway who was spray painting, some sort of random
Yeah.
thing. What did you think of that?
Well, honestly, one of my biggest problems with this film also is the fact that all the previous films, like offerings like the cameos, with the exception of Harold Ramis's bust statue and a few other, anything that references the first film I felt was so forced and kind of lifeless, and it's probably some of the worst fan service I've ever seen in a movie.
The Harold Ramis statue comes at the beginning of the film, because Harold Ramis, of course, died in 2014, and unfortunately, and that's primarily why we aren't seeing a Ghostbusters 3 anymore. That talk of that ended, with the original cast ended once he died. So
actually, there was talk of doing a Ghostbusters 3 anyway.
Yeah.
That
would not have worked, in my opinion.
I don't think so either.
Unless they CGI'd him in, like
Paul Walker.
That would have been weird. He could have driven up next to Vin Diesel and smiled at him. Or like Philip Seymour Hoffman.
This is a Twinkie.
Yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman in Hunger Games, they kind of did something like that, I think.
They actually made Katniss read the letter instead of having him talk to her.
Yeah, because, he died. It wouldn't have been possible. So I think the references were, for the most part, fine. I think maybe I'm just used to them now, like all these movies. I think because it's a comedy, and it's a goofy comedy, I don't mind them as much as something in, say, like Jurassic World, when there's so many references, but the movie is trying to be this sort of action thrill ride, and, it just takes me completely out of the movie. But with a comedy where you're breaking the fourth wall constantly anyway, it is less obvious, I guess, to me. So that was all the references. Almost everyone who's alive from the original Ghostbusters cast makes a brief appearance, and
except Rick Moranis.
Yeah, except Rick Moranis, who's retired from acting. That would have been good to get him in there, but everybody else.
He's very picky.
Yeah, virtually everybody else shows up. I thought, for some reason, I didn't mind all of them.
I didn't mind Dan Aykroyd. I thought Sigourney Weaver's was kind of a nice thing. Annie Potts was brief, but fine. Ernie Hudson's was good. Bill Murray's was just dreadful, though.
I thought Bill Murray, he plays like a sort of, it's almost not even a cameo anymore. He kind of plays an extended role as a debunker who wants to debunk all the things that the Ghostbusters are doing. And,
but you can tell he didn't want to be there at all.
I didn't read that at all. I thought he seemed like he was having just as much fun as everybody else.
Oh,
I thought he did a good job, and I thought he was fine. He was I didn't see him miserable at all.
Oh, he looked so miserable. I thought he was. You could tell he was just phoning in his performance.
I mean, he didn't really have much to do, but
And he
I
knew
thought
that too.
I thought it looked like was having fun when he was on that TV thing, and he was, you know, just I don't know. Maybe I'd have to see it again, but I thought it was fine.
I thought he had more fun as Baloo in the Jungle Book than here.
Well, that he just had to sit on a chair in a recording studio because he was just the voice for that.
But still, he had brought more life in that performance than this.
I don't know. I guess we'll just agree to disagree on that.
Yes.
All
we
right.
will.
So, anyway, in that scene, back to the movie where they're in that subway for the first time, and then they try to. This is their first sort of ghost capture thing, and this was sort of the most bizarre logic I've ever seen in a film, and that remained unanswered in the whole movie. Is they try to capture this prisoner ghost, and they're sort of blasting it with their lasers, and then they're in the subway, and the train is about to show up, you know, and then instead of like capturing it using that like electrical box, the train slams into the ghost, and Kristen Wiig is slimed again, and the ghost is trapped inside of the train, and then it's never mentioned again. I guess that ghost is just going to haunt the subway forever. And Leslie Jones does have a really funny line where she says that's the third scariest thing on that train or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't find that particularly funny, but it was a nice written line.
I thought it was funny because I have had experiences on subways that are scary. So I connected with that, and New York subway is notoriously scary. So, you know, I thought that was a funny line. But the logic of the ghost trapped in the train, I just didn't understand, like, why they would choose to end the scene that way. It was just very strange. But anyway, I didn't think there was necessarily enough, like, logic in how they caught the ghosts and stored them, and what do they do with them once they were caught. That part, I mean, I guess the same could be said about the first film and Ghostbusters in general, but it's
something that needs to be explored regardless.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem with Ghostbusters in general, is that it just kind of, you know, you just have to go with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so once they catch that ghost, they go really viral, and they have a funny joke, I thought, where the actual internet haters, like, it sort of paralleled real life, because a lot of people in the movie world were online saying, like, you know, women shouldn't be catching ghosts and things like that. And that was sort of Paul Feig's slight rib against the movie's actual haters.
Yep, you can tell that was the intention.
Yeah. And also, they don't call themselves Ghostbusters. The media calls them Ghostbusters, and they don't really care for the name, but I guess they
grow on it.
Yeah, they just let it slide, and that's what they call themselves now. And then Patty joins this team because she, quote unquote, knows the city, because she's an MTA worker, and whatever. I mean, she's not a scientist, but she knows the city.
On it,
what?
Looking back on that, yeah, she says she knows the city, but you really don't see her showing anybody it at all.
No, not at all. You just have to run with it. She doesn't. I mean, she does have some little information about, like, these mansions and things.
Yes.
Like, once in a while, but she never uses it in any meaningful way, definitely.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, and then Patty provides the team with their new set of wheels, which is not a variation on the Ecto-1, which is basically a hearse. And, you know, there may or may not be a dead body in the back seat, which is, again, I thought was kind of a funny gag. But
that was a little funny scene, yeah.
Yeah. So I did like the new car and some of the new gadgets, like how, you know, it was a hearse. I think that's appropriate for Ghostbusters, that there's a hearse is the car. And the gadgets, they have, like, a grenade and, like, this proton glove that you literally punch the ghosts into wherever they go when you punch them, I guess. Again, not really explained what happens scientifically. They just seem to brush it off, say, oh, it's like a nuclear reactor or something like that. What did you think of the ghost wood chipper?
I I thought it was a cool little design, but when it's actually used, I was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah. There is literally a ghost wood chipper. I guess it sucks in the ghost in one end and out comes like curly cued strands that looks like a wood chipper.
Yeah.
And then also, Erin is in this scene where everybody gets a cool weapon. She gets just a basic Swiss Army knife from Holtzman, which you know is going to be used later, and it is used later, to blow up Stay Puft. And so I don't know how you felt about that.
Now you're talking about the scene where I was referring to a big subplot being missing. Mind if I intervene?
Intervene away, Matt.
Well, basically, I may be going a track ahead, but there's a scene later on in the movie. They get arrested, and the next scene, Erin is back in her apartment.
Yeah.
You don't understand why, and then she finds out that what his Rowan's plan really is. Tries to get the city to stop all this jazz, and then
Yeah, Rowan's plan is literally just to unleash ghosts on New York. There's no further thought process. Like, I don't see how, it's not like he's going to be in control of these ghosts.
yes,
They're just going to be everywhere. But anyway,
right.
continue.
Anyway, but you see the three other Ghostbusters in the original place, like quarreling and trying to get Rowan to stop possessing Abby, and then later possessing Kevin. But when they go off to save the city, it's just those three in the hearse, but they didn't even bother to wait for Erin. And then when Erin eventually does come, using the Swiss Army knife on the Stay Puft Man, as you suggested, Leslie Jones immediately says, "Welcome back." For me, knowing that the film was originally 4 hours and 15 minutes long, part of me wonders, did Paul Feig cut out a whole subplot where the team splits up and just pretends that the audience doesn't know about it until this?
Yeah. I can't remember the movie that well that I remember exactly what happens, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I just felt that would have been important to keep in the movie, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure there were scenes cut out probably during that moment. And then we come to the very bizarre scene of the music theater scene, where there's a metal concert by a band that I can't remember the name of, but it was very generic. And it's sort of their first ghost-busting scene, where they track down I think it's where they track down Rowan will be or something like that. Or they're called. No, they get their first call.
Yeah, they get their first call.
By Michael McDonald from Mad TV, who played Stewart. And this is sort of the main set piece of the movie, I think. This sort of big, or before the final set piece, it's sort of the first main Ghostbusters in their full uniforms, with their proton packs, going after a ghost. It's sort of them being a team for the first time. And I thought this didn't work that well.
No, it didn't.
This whole scene, it was just kind of lame. First, Leslie Jones is chased by a mannequin, and it was just very strange. And there's a giant dragon ghost. It makes no sense why there's a dragon ghost. Like, I guess dragons existed in this world. It just seems so random. Like,
yeah,
I didn't understand that at all.
I didn't either.
The band's music was awful. We also hear before this the Fall Out Boy version of the theme song, which is disappointing on many levels.
Luckily, Walk the Moons is better.
Featuring Missy Elliott. So there you go. Fall Out Boy and Missy Elliott. Anyway, one detail I thought was very bizarre was when they were running through the hall chasing after the dragon, they were just sort of blowing their proton packs like willy-nilly in the hallway, chasing after the ghost. I felt like that was so dangerous. Like, they could easily attack each other accidentally. Because those beams aren't just like a gun that goes straight. It's like they curly-cue all over the place. So, I don't understand. They destroy property wantonly, and they aren't really held accountable.
Yeah.
And there is an Ozzy Osbourne cameo as well.
Which I thought was bad, too.
Yeah. It makes no sense why he's even in this film. I mean, this is a movie really meant for children, let's be honest.
Yes.
And no child is going to know who Ozzy Osbourne is. And then they celebrate with pizza once they capture the ghost. And then, I don't know if you remember this scene, but Erin has this very strange emotional moment from her youth where she talks about when she was a child, she had an experience with a ghost. Do you remember this?
I remember that scene very well, and actually, to your point, Peter, that was actually one of the stronger parts of the film for me, because, as you mentioned earlier with Rowan, he's bullied as a kid and still bullied as an adult and uses it for evil, while Abby and Erin were both bullied as children and still made fun of today as adults for believing in ghosts, but still try to help the people anyway.
Yeah.
I think that is a good, counter argument between characters that I think Paul Feig intended the theme of letting go of your past really well in this film.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it stuck out very strangely. Like, the movie is joke, 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 and then all of a sudden there's this weird, long, emotional scene that has no jokes whatsoever, where she's just sort of, very upset, about this ghost that haunted her as a child. I don't know.
I honestly thought that ghost that she mentioned was going to appear in the end.
Yeah.
But never did.
It's very bizarre, and it just seems out of place, and it's never paid off. But it's just a small scene, but I thought it just stuck out a lot. Let's see. And then, what happens? Then they are escorted to the mayor. Another subplot I thought was very bizarre.
I didn't like that subplot at all.
Yeah.
And I thought his secretary was really not that funny.
Yeah. First, they're brought to the mayor by a couple of his goons, I guess, or assistants or agents or whatever. One of whom is played by Michael K. Williams from The Wire, who played Omar. Mm-hmm. It just makes no sense. He has almost no lines or role in the film. He's just there as this miscellaneous tough guy, and
right.
It's why would you hire an actor like that, to play this small role? And Cecily Strong plays his assistant, who is another funny lady who was actually in the running to be one of the 4 Ghostbusters originally, but I think her scheduling didn't work. But she's also in this sort of weird role of assisting the mayor, and they're trying to get the Ghostbusters to call themselves frauds because they don't want to cause a panic in the city. Even though ghosts are very likely to kill everybody. I don't know if they're going to kill people. Do these ghosts actually murder people? It's unclear, because the first scene in the film, the cold open, the skinny office guy, from The Office,
lives.
He lives. He's not murdered. So, what is the big deal? I guess it's just the inconvenience of being slimed is really what we're saving the city from.
Right.
There's no actual huge stakes. I guess maybe you could be squished by a fake Stay Puft Marshmallow Man or something, but
right.
There's no actual death or murder in the film. But I guess that would make it traumatic for children.
Actually, no, there is a death. Bill Murray's character.
Yeah, he's thrown out of a window by the dragon that was previously captured. And to prove that ghosts are real, the Erin character releases the dragon that they caught at the concert. And then doesn't the dragon throw him through the window and he dies?
Yes.
That's why the mayor's people show up in the first place.
Exactly.
It's so bizarre. That is a very bizarre moment that he dies like that. And no one really blames Kristen Wiig's character for murdering someone, really. I mean, it's her fault that, she should at least feel a little bit bad that she, murdered somebody, kind of.
Bill Murray's probably thankful for the script writers for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he probably did it mostly because he wanted to, not appear like a jerk for being the only person not coming back.
Right.
Anyway, so, yeah, there's a subplot with the mayor that goes nowhere. It's very lame. And then that sort of starts where I started to lose the film. Once Rowan's plan starts coming into action, this is where I checked out for the most part. His ghost... Oh, first, they find Rowan in his basement. They find out he works at a hotel building, and they go into his, like, lair in the basement of the hotel, and he, like, kills himself to become a ghost, and then his ghost possesses other people.
Which is, I go back to, I thought that was probably one of the dumbest parts of the movie.
It is definitely stupid. He at first possesses Abby, the Melissa McCarthy character, and then she just starts destroying things. And then Leslie Jones literally bitch slaps the ghost out of Melissa McCarthy's character. And we saw this in the trailer. And
the power of pain compels you.
Yeah. And she bitch slaps the ghost out of her friend. And then the ghost goes into Kevin, who drives his motorcycle away to, enact the final plans. I don't understand why he needs to possess human bodies. Like, he had a human body to begin with. Why did he kill himself? Like, it makes
because he wants the power.
I guess so, but I mean,
it's stupid. I agree.
I mean, I guess he, there are some perks to looking like Chris Hemsworth, but it just seems like an extra problem to all of a sudden have to kill yourself and then possess somebody as a ghost. It makes no sense. But that was the plan. And then they start to, try to warn people, and no one wants to hear it. And then the sort of final action set piece happens that I thought was not handled very well. I don't think Paul Feig... Actually, scratch that. Spy had some really good action in it, but that was more hand-to-hand action. Like, there's a scene in Spy... that's sort of this fist fight in a kitchen with Melissa McCarthy using like pots and pans to defend herself. I thought that was a really well done action scene, hand to hand combat. But
I didn't like the movie, but I agree with you there.
Yeah, but this final scene is just this CGI vomit all over the screen, basically, and it didn't.
Well, yes and no. For the most part, the CGI was really ridiculously handled, but I didn't mind Rowan when he was the 2D version of the Ghostbusters logo. I thought that was kind of a cool little scene.
I thought that
but
was...
when he becomes CGI, it's really stupid.
I thought that was so stupid. Like, I feel like that's the basically Rowan, because he can not only can he possess people, but he is also a shapeshifter, which makes no sense. Why would he need to possess people if he can also be a shapeshifter? Because
I agree.
He changes from Chris Hemsworth to, inexplicably, for no reason, he literally turns into a 2D animated version of the Ghostbusters logo, talking.
Well, which form would you prefer?
Like,
this form?
Like in Disney... like style, like traditional 2D Walt Disney animation style. And he says because he thinks that will be more comfortable if the main Ghostbusters, understand, it makes no sense. He says basically like, this is a form you're more comfortable with, I guess. And then he goes from that small cartoon logo to a giant Stay Puft-like version of the logo ghost, and just destroys things. None of it makes sense whatsoever. It is so dumb. It is so dumb. And also before that, when they're fighting ghosts, like around that, there's like slow motion. This is when they finally use those guns and weapons that Kate McKinnon earlier in the film tested in an alleyway. And it just did not work for me at all. It was like in slow motion. The music sucked. And
not to mention, they were able to solve all of them and kill all those ghosts with no issue at all. No struggle.
Well, there was a little bit of a struggle. I mean, we saw the Stay Puft belly flop on the three people, and they were kind of...
Well, other than that, like...
And she fell down that hole. Remember the hole, Matt?
Yeah, the hole still...
The full hole at the end. And also, inexplicably, there's a bizarre moment. I would be remiss to miss. There's a scene when he's possessed Chris Hemsworth, Rowan. And then he makes the military, I guess, do like Saturday Night Fever poses.
I know. I didn't understand that either. I thought there was going to be like a little thriller sequence or something. Nothing.
He like dances along with them at first, and then freezes them, holding them in the like the front of Saturday Night Fever John Travolta pose.
Yeah.
And then at the end they unfreeze. I don't know if that was supposed to, I guess it was supposed to be funny or something, but
it wasn't, because I didn't know what he was doing.
It was very bizarre. Makes no sense whatsoever. And their final plan. Oh, we didn't even mention it. Slimer appears, the sort of popular fat ghost from the original film, and he hijacks their hearse car, and he's basically just driving around randomly in the background throughout all of this while they're like fighting ghosts in slow motion. And they
again, that was another stupid scene.
Yeah, and also there's a female Slimer.
For no reason.
It makes no sense whatsoever why they would introduce a female Slimer like in the passenger seat while Slimer is driving. But
I have one explanation for that, Peter.
What?
Girl power.
I guess, but whatever. But anyway, their final plan to stop this is there's a giant portal that has opened up in the middle of the city, and they want to suck the giant Ghostbusters logo into this portal, and they want to steer the Slimer ghost who is now driving their hearse car into the portal and blast the nuclear reactor that is on top of the hearse with their proton packs, and that will effectively close the portal and suck all the ghosts floating around into it. And so this plan just seems... Again, this plan makes no sense, but I'm willing to buy it within the cartoon logic of the movie. I don't know. What did you think? Do you think it's... How much are you willing to suspend your disbelief for, like, a movie like this?
Well, this isn't a realistic movie at all. But this movie made some pretty stupid decisions throughout. And the last act really showed it. Like, everything was just resolved way too quickly, and the Slimer ghost scene, and the fact that they conveniently had a nuclear reactor in the back of that hearse.
Yeah,
it was either too convenient, just not planned out properly, or just so stupid I didn't buy into it at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that much different from the original Ghostbusters ending.
No, but this was like borderline ridiculous at times.
Yeah, I think it's because the ending of the first film, if I recall, it seemed, even though it's a big scale city attack, like with Stay Puft and everything, it seems like less chaotically messy. Like, they just have to fight like those dogs, like the evil Satan dogs or whatever they were, and like there was some random like lady and the Stay Puft, and it was just felt more contained, and it made sense. This one is just a mess. There was like a tall like Uncle Sam ghost, and there's a dragon. The logo appears inexplicably. So many things. It's just this giant mess of stuff. If they had picked like a couple things, but it just seemed like they were just throwing stuff like left and right, and none of it made sense. So it just lost me. I didn't care what was happening, and I think the reason was they weren't telling jokes by this point. The whole movie's filled with jokes, and I would say probably 70% of the jokes worked. But, when they're rapid fire, it feels like it's working. But here, it's all this action, and, you get less of what makes the movie work, in my opinion, which is the jokes. So... Anyway, and then eventually, as the giant logo ghost is being sucked into the vortex, it grabs Abby, and then in a final act of self-sacrifice, kind of, Erin jumps in with a wire and rescues Abby out of this portal, very much in a similar way to the Big Hero 6 ending, which I didn't
see that movie.
Oh, I just spoiled it for you. I'm sorry. But
no
it's somewhat similar, but I won't ruin what exactly happens. But it's somewhat similar, act of sacrifice in that film. It's not really sacrifice because she has a harness. It's not like she's killing herself.
And it was, again, resolved way too quickly. No consequence at all.
I feel like that scene would have worked for me if it didn't look so shitty. I mean, it's so bad. I mean, I'll try not to use bad words. But
bad words are okay sometimes, Peter.
Okay.
I forgive you.
I'll try to keep it clean from now on, but we're almost done. We're almost at the end of the movie. Once they save Abby and then all the ghosts are safe, that's the end of the film, basically. And then finally, and they come out of the portal. They both have white hair.
No reason whatsoever.
Well, I mean, if you get really scared, you get white hair. But then that's never brought up again. Like, they just revert back.
Well, no, they dye it, and they're like, oh, it looks good.
Yeah, but, like,
Looks
it's
good.
never really brought up again. Like, what was the point of introducing that? Like, so there was no point to it. So, I don't know. They didn't seem to really care. They just thought it was kind of funny that they had white hair.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor is still inexplicably claiming that ghosts aren't real. He says they're mass hallucinations. Then the team, finally, because they have apparently money because they saved the city, they upgrade finally to the firehouse from the first film. They get a new hearse that was destroyed by the Slimer ghost, that was destroyed. And Ernie Hudson is apparently the uncle that Leslie Jones's character got the hearse from. Ernie Hudson pops up. And then the credits roll. And then...
Well, we forgot to mention one particular thing.
What?
Kate McKinnon's speech at the bar.
I loved that speech.
Me too.
I thought that was
I thought
touching.
that was a really good emotional scene.
Yeah, and I
right
thought
there.
it fit with her character because it wasn't quite it wasn't overly sappy. It was kind of like done in her awkward way. Like
Agreed.
She doesn't know how to connect with people. I thought that was the scene that sort of made her character memorable to me. Is that scene?
I agree.
I thought that might have been the best moment of the whole movie.
That was one of the stronger parts. I agree.
Yeah, that was a great scene. So anything else I'm missing? Because
did you watch the end credits scene?
I watched. There were two. There's like a mid-credits scene, and there's
with Sigourney Weaver.
With Sigourney Weaver, she sort of is revealed to be like Holtzman's mentor. It was really kind of nothing to that.
And then the New York Loves Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I really thought that was a nice little thing, even though
it was.
It's kind of bizarre that I guess the entire city had to coordinate that, but I'm willing to.
Yeah,
but
in this it's touching.
And then the post-credit scene, basically, the team is in their firehouse. Patty is listening to a recording, and then she asks everybody else, "What's Zool?" And Zool is, of course, the character, the villain from the first movie, the refrigerator villain monster from the first movie. So,
I hope
they're setting up the second movie to basically be a rehash of the first movie's plot and characters. So,
I really hope they don't use Zool personally. Do something new.
Yeah. Well,
if you're gonna continue this, do something new.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I was kind of pleasantly surprised to hear that name for whatever reason, but I agree that they should do something new.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
like they did something new here, and it worked okay.
It was new, but it also has the exact same structure as the first film.
Yeah.
At least, but the characters were different enough, the visuals were updated enough, and
right.
It was just different enough that it was entertaining and didn't feel just like. I felt this was not a better film than The Force Awakens, but in terms of copying the original, I thought it did a better job of taking.
I disagree 100%.
I know you probably do, but
yeah,
I thought it did a better job of taking the spirit of the original and tweaking it, and making it different enough, but staying true to the feeling and tone than Force Awakens. Even though Force Awakens is a better film, I do think Force Awakens was way too similar to the original, A New Hope.
Well, here's the thing with me, as I mentioned earlier, the humor for me did not work in Ghostbusters as effective as the originals did.
Yeah.
If you don't sell well humor-wise, it doesn't work for me really at all. Well, the Force Awakens, the humor, the characters, the fan service worked much better than this did.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any final thoughts on Ghostbusters? We have reached the end of the film.
Well.
Oh, there's a phone.
Yes.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
Well, Ghostbusters in general, I agree with you. It surprised me in the aspect that it wasn't as bad as the trailers were. but there are very glaring issues with it, both script-wise, and it's obvious Paul Feig told his editor, take as much out to make a cohesive film as possible, even though there were moments where I didn't think it was very cohesive. Mm-hmm. But the characters and the script, well, the cast makes the bland script viewable, if you will.
Yeah.
Even though Neil Casey, I don't think should ever be in a Hollywood film ever again, personally.
Well,
he was just so boring.
All right, that is really harsh, Matt. I do not.
But it's true.
Okay. Well, I don't wish anybody necessarily lose their job over this film, except for the trailer editors.
Well, yeah, that I give you.
But anyway, my thoughts pretty much the same as my general thoughts. I thought the camaraderie worked. I laughed a decent amount of the time. It was good. I mean, it was a solid film. Wasn't, it's just a pleasant movie that I felt good leaving the theater with.
Yeah.
Nothing spectacular, but
it wasn't anything at the same time that ruined your childhood.
No.
I mean,
Ghostbusters really wasn't a huge part of my childhood. I think it's kind of overrated, to be honest. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but it is it's so culturally a part of our movie language, that you have to honor it in some way.
Yeah, and luckily it didn't do enough where if it did well that I wouldn't wish for a sequel, because honestly I think the sequel might better control some of the issues I had with this one.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess that about wraps up our little podcast thing here. Me and Matt, we have no clue what we're doing. We spent almost 3 hours trying to figure out just how to record this stupid thing before actually hitting the record button. So we're very new to this. So we would appreciate any feedback you guys have. If you want to leave that on our Facebook page, and like us on Facebook if you liked our show. And just make sure your comments are civil. Don't give us slurs. Don't leave slurs on our page.
Don't hate us for saying that the movie was okay, please.
I don't think that is a strong enough recommendation that people will get upset over.
Nostalgia Critic actually got death threats for saying it was good.
Well,
for just saying it was okay, I mean.
All right, so please don't wish death on me or Matt's life. Okay, and I might as well plug myself. That has no other meaning other than I'm going to tell you where to find my blog, which is I review movies in text form on pwatersreviews.blogspot.net, and you can also follow me on Letterboxd at pwatersnh. And Matt, if you want to plug anything.
Yes, I am on WordPress at VealVision. Just type vealvision.wordpress.com, and you can find not only my reviews but my video portfolio of stuff I've worked on.
All right. So, yeah, that's about it for our show, audio podcast. I promise if we do this again, it will probably be 10 times better.
Agreed.
This is our first time. So we are, infants in the world of audio recording and these things. But so next week, if you want to see how, much we improve from week to week, next week we will be trekking to space with Justin Lin's latest film, Star Trek Beyond. If we record it,
it would be a Fast and Furious time.
Yes, if we actually record it, if we actually listen back to this and don't completely hate ourselves, that we'll probably do it. But we will probably do it anyway because we have nothing better to do. Anyway, so thanks for listening.
Take care, guys.
Take care. I have nothing.
Have a bustin' day.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Bustin' makes me feel good.
All right, Matt. Let's end this thing.